Hi there, my name is Yasmin. I'm a tutor here at Tutor Impact, and today we're going to be talking about technology and business. Now, the speed at which technology advances is getting much faster. So this is a really important topic in this day and age. And businesses need to be aware of technology that is available to them and how it might influence their sales, their costs, and their marketing. So it's a really important thing that you should know about as you're going into the working world in the future. Now, I'm going to start by talking about e-commerce. And what e-commerce well, it's also known as electric commerce, first of all, and this refers to the buying and selling of products and services, and it uses devices connected to an electronic network, such as the internet. So when you're doing your online shopping, this is a form of e-commerce. And three things are required for e-commerce to take place. You need a seller who has products and services that are displayed electronically, which, as we discussed, is where a device is connected to an electronic network such as the internet. The second requirement is a buyer who has the equipment required to view the seller's products and services and a means of paying for them. And finally, the requirement of a network that enables information and payment to be exchanged by the seller and the buyer. Now, we can see on the screen here that there are certain advantages and disadvantages of e-commerce. So we'll start with the advantages. Now, advantages are that it can attract global customers. And this is because you are not prohibited by the sort of physical location of a shop. And anyone across the world can visit your website and buy your products. This also means you can sell at any time of the day or night because you don't have those opening hours. You do not have to have staff constantly in a shop for people to be able to buy your products. The third advantage here is that you receive the payment immediately. And the final advantage is that you have a reduced overhead costs compared to a physical shop. So you don't have that rent requirement of a website. Obviously, you have to pay for things like the domain if you do have a website, but you don't have that physical rent aspect, which is obviously very expensive normally. You also don't have other overheads such as electricity or having the cost of having physical staff in a shop. Now, there are some disadvantages though, and that is that firstly, there are more competitors across the globe. If you are opening your shop to a worldwide audience, you can obviously expect more competition as other sellers do the same. The second disadvantage is that your employees may need new skills, such as website maintenance, which is quite a lot more complex in terms of training than standing in a shop and selling items. That requires a lot more training in certain aspects, such as coding, for example, that the typical sort of shop worker would not normally have. Another disadvantage is the procedures required for delivery and returns. Obviously, delivering items is not free, and returning items is also not free. If it's online, you have to pay for that postage side. You also need sort of a distribution center for you to ship those items from. So there is some sort of physical aspect, obviously, still, but obviously that's not as much as having a physical shop running all the time. And then there is also the need to maintain and update technologies to ensure that your website is protected, such as having security software. So those are just some advantages and disadvantages of e-commerce in general. We're also going to look at impacts of e-commerce on costs in particular. So as I said before, these cover sort of similar aspects. So some advantage are fewer staff and therefore smaller premises, which is the first advantage here. You also don't need to be on the high street, which is expensive. And you can also have task augmentation, which means admin and record keeping is much more efficient. There's also disadvantages in terms of costs, such as the cost of maintaining the website. There's the fees for the online payment and distribution costs. So these are all impacts of e-commerce on costs. Now, we're now going to look at social media, and you're probably already familiar with this concept in particular. So social media has actually grown to become an important part of business, particularly in relation to marketing activities. So any form of electronic communication that enables users to share things such as ideas, content, information, and messages can be described as social media. And as you probably know, there are many different platforms available, such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, amongst the well-known. We also have those emerging social medias, such as TikTok, which has obviously become a lot more popular in the last few years. And these can all be used by businesses. So we're first going to look at using social media for sales and marketing, which you can see on the screen here. And the advantage of this is that social media is relatively cheap, and it's a good way to advertise in a visual or written form. It can be used by both large businesses and small businesses to attract a target audience that's interested in products and services being promoted or sold. So it allows you to tailor to specific audiences. And businesses can encourage people to follow their activities and promotions. And in this way, businesses can gain loyalty. So it's a really good way of sort of maintaining and introducing customer loyalty. Now, the second example of using social media here is using social media to interact with customers. And businesses can use social media to see what customers are saying about their products and services, which is really helpful in terms of the sort of preliminary stages when it comes to thinking of how much to sell of a certain product or whether to introduce new products in a business. And additionally, customers can ask questions or express their views about products and services of a business. And what these customer interactions allow is that further sort of information about the products or services a company is providing. And then it offers insights into what to do in terms of next steps for those companies. But the only downside is these sorts of interactions need to be handled carefully because inaccurate and inappropriate responses can be shared quickly and easily, and this could create bad publicity. So although social media allows for good interactions to take place, you need to be careful that bad interactions don't get posted, because then this could lead to bad publicity, especially seeing as the exposure that these sorts of channels have. And the last point we're going to talk about now is using social media to communicate with stakeholders. So using media platforms such as LinkedIn can be used to contact with other businesses and networks with relevant people and organizations. Many businesses now use social media as part of their recruitment process, not just for advertising vacancies, but also to gain an insight into any applicants by looking at their social media activity. So when a company is looking to hire new people, they can do these sort of background checks on people's social media to get an insight into who they are as a person and their qualifications on platforms such as LinkedIn, for example. And closed social media tools are sometimes used by some businesses for informal or internal communication with staff. So these sort of social media platforms can be quite useful for inter-staff communication within the company. Now we're going to look at the impacts of social media on sales and costs. And you can see here that I have the sales on the left and the costs on the right here. So social media can be used to run sales and marketing campaigns and to interact with customers. And this has regular direct communication, and it can help build customer relationships, which in turn can help increase sales. However, as I said before, poor responses to social media posts can quickly be shared with other customers, which can be very damaging in terms of reputation and can lead to a fall in sales. However, it's a balancing effect, because good responses can have the opposite effect and can lead to increased popularity and sales. So it's really a balancing act in terms of the online reputation a business builds. And the impact on costs here is that social media provides a quick and effective way for businesses to communicate and interact with customers. So it enables even small businesses to reach a wide audience for a minimal cost. So from a cost aspect, it's relatively cheap and a good platform and a good opportunity for businesses to use. Now moving on to digital communications. So digital communication is the process of sending information to others and receiving information back from them. And digital communication involves sending and receiving such information electronically. And you can see a number of different methods for digital communication here. We have things such as email, which enables written messages to be sent instantly. We have mobile phones, which now enable verbal communication and written information. And this can happen anywhere, regardless of the location. But there's also apps now, mobile applications, which are designed to run on smartphones and tablets. There's also websites, which we spoke about before with e-commerce, and social media, which we also just discussed. There's also web conferencing, which allows communications within a group, and you can stream images and voices over the internet between different people in different locations. There's also cloud services and also other forms of instant messaging, such as text messages. So there's a lot of digital communication. And as I said at the beginning, this has developed very quickly over the last couple of decades. And this has come with a lot of different impacts. So we're going to look at the impacts of digital communication, firstly on sales. And the easier it is to contact a business, whether by phone, by email, or through a website, the more likely a customer is to trust that business and make a purchase, because there's always that sort of information on hand to answer any queries that person may have. And using digital communication effectively can therefore help a business to increase its sales. So digital communication helps businesses to make more sales because of that customer trust that is established from these platforms. And we're now going to look at the impact on costs, of the costs impact. And a business will incur costs when investing at the initial outset in any digital communication system. They're not free to use. However, the initial cost will enable a longer term savings to be made. So there's that initial cost from setting up, whether it's the computer systems, buying some sort of subscription, or the phones that are required for this digital communication. However, in the long run, this pays off because there is more sales, as we spoke about before. And examples of how businesses can save money using digital communication include things such as increasing availability of digital communication tools, is enabling more and more employees to work remotely, for example, from home. And this can help reduce the cost for businesses as they can operate from either smaller offices or from no offices at all. Communications can also save money in terms of the electronic format they come in, because there is less printing and postage costs associated with that. And then even greater savings can be made with video conferencing, because there is no sort of cost associated with people traveling to make face-to-face meetings happen. So it's overall reducing the costs once that initial investment has been made into the technology that is required. And the last sort of digital thing we're going to be discussing is payment methods. And these have changed quite significantly, particularly in recent times. So in the UK, the use of cash to make payments has fallen significantly in recent years. Back in 2008, which I consider not to be that long ago, 60% of all payments in the UK were made by cash, so coins and notes. However, by 2018, this had fallen to 28%. And by 2028, so in 6 years' time, it's estimated that only 9% of payments in the UK will be made in cash. So it's decreasing over time. And there's been a significant increase in the use of debit cards to make payments. And in 2017, these became the most frequently used method of payment, overtaking cash for the first time. And it's weird to think that that was only 5 years ago, where cash was still being used more than card. But particularly since COVID, that use of card, especially contactless, has increased significantly, with people wanting to reduce the amount of physical contact of using cash. And advances in payment technology have led to this introduction of the contactless system without using cash at all. So we're going to just quickly discuss some examples of non-cash technology that have been developed. And the first one after cash was chip and PIN. And this was where debit and credit cards were used containing a chip, which required a personal identification number, the PIN, to authorize payment. However, that has since been developed into contactless payments, which were introduced into UK in 2007. And this is now a very popular way of making payments. And I think the limit has recently been increased to £100. So you can make a purchase up to £100 without having to put any sort of protection PIN in. And this technology also gives people with smartphones the option to use their card in store, with things such as Apple Pay or Google Pay being developed in the last couple of years. Now, there has been quite a big impact of payment methods on sales activity. There's been quite a big impact of this on sales activity, because this is making it a lot easier and more convenient for customers to pay for products, and therefore they are more likely to buy things than before, when they had to put in their card or have the correct amount of cash. And businesses that only accept cash nowadays might find it increasingly difficult to attract customers, because personally, I don't carry cash on me that often anymore, and it's becoming more and more common for people just to take out a card or their phone with Apple Pay out with them. And there is also an impact of payment methods on costs, because the development of new payment technologies has enabled traditional businesses to take payments in a more secure and cost-effective way, without needing to hold large amounts of cash in their premises. So you no longer need to hold all of the cash and the change that you normally would to give people in return for what the money they were giving you. In addition, the real-time online transactions can take place, with the business receiving payment almost immediately, which we spoke about before. This convenience does come at a cost, though, because businesses that handle card payments charge a small percentage fee for every transaction. But if you look at that from the bigger picture, the increased sales that come about due to the ease and the convenience of using these payment methods mean that it balances out in the end, if not improves the situation for businesses. Now, we've spoken about a lot here, but I'm just going to quickly recap some of the key things we've spoken about. So we've discussed how businesses need to be aware of technology that is available to them and how it might influence their sales, their costs, and their marketing. In particular, we've looked at e-commerce, which is electronic commerce, which refers to the buying and selling of products and services using devices connected to an electronic network, such as the internet. We then moved on to talk about social media, which has grown to become an important part of business, particularly in relation to marketing activities. We then looked at digital communication, which involves sending and receiving such information electronically. And then we finished by looking at payment methods, and we saw how we've gone from taking cash to using chip and PIN. And now in this day and age, a lot of people use contactless payments, whether this is using their cards or using platforms such as Apple Pay. I hope this has been helpful and given you sort of a brief insight into technology and business, and I hope you have found it interesting. Thanks for watching. Bye.